Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Row of Gilly coming at you here with the BattleWorld guide exclusively for my alliance, the Black Brotherhood. Nah, I'm just playing. We're going to be here helping you guys out today. We're part of the Black Alliance cluster, and was hoping to get a nice, fun tutorial made for like prep for BattleWorld. What you need to know, things that are speculative. Include some links down here to data mines and things like that if you want to invest. But what this guy's aim is to explain how BattleWorld works, so it's easy to understand and explain to your alliance mates where your points and rewards are going to come from and how best to prepare for that without accidentally investing in something you may or may not need. So with that being said, friends, we're going to get into this here. This is one of those things where if you've played mobile games for a long time, a lot of the things I'm about to tell you might seem pretty straightforward, unless you're the type of person who's a little more casual or you are a alliance leader or alliance captain. This stuff's gonna be very, very important if you are trying to min-max this event. Now, if you are a newer alliance or a free-to-play alliance that is not quite ready to hit the end game, that is the difficulty 5 of BattleWorld, fear not. There's tons of Envoy videos and content out there that pretty much solidify for us, at least in this early beta phase where the community doesn't have ready access to it yet, that it is doable at the minimum requirement, which is level 75. So as long as your account's level 75, you're going to be in good shape. You'll have the characters at the minimum requirements to use for this event. Now, let's go over some of the things we do know and some of the things that could have changed in the last couple days. We do know that this is a 5 to 6 day event. It seems like 5 days of actual node-based gameplay, and then if you clear all 5 of those, we face Knull on 6. However, envoys that have and players voice movement players that have been in the beta testing BattleWorld before it comes out fully to the rest of our community have said that it might be down to just 5 days total, 4 for the missions, 1 for Knull. So moving ahead, other basics we need to know. There's going to be up to a potential of 6 difficulties. The website and all of the beta chat that we've been seeing from these different YouTube creators and envoys and players voice movement and yada yada yada, they've said there's 5. So we know of 5. There could be 6. And this is one of those nice things too where it seems very clear, and we'll get to these screenshots at the end so you can kind of visualize a little better. But these reward difficulty screens are very similar looking to the first time raid completion rewards. So I would imagine that as time goes on, as they expand the game mode, as they add more detail, more points, more potential, more characters to unlock, that, you know, we're going to get more of those scaling difficulties for first time rewards. And it's going to help us kind of evolve and keep the gameplay fresh. So there's probably a typo on the webpage, but even if it is a typo, I don't see that being really much of a fallacy. This is supposed to be the next carrying device for this game, getting people not only to engage with their alliance, stay involved and have fun, but also to help Scopely grind out a few extra dollars. So that being said, how this whole event works, if we're looking at this home screen behind us here, you're going to earn points every day, both yourself and your alliance as a whole. Those points are going to push you into the next node if you hit that minimum requirement as an alliance. And you're also going to gain personal score rewards as well. Now, in the screenshot we have pulled up here, on MSF, this is just another open browser from their wheeling carousel. Most annoying way to try to put information out there, especially since it doesn't have a pause button. So we got a bunch of windows here to help you explain it. If you look in the bottom right there, you'll see that's your personal victory point contribution. There's personal milestones. Now, that's the first one by the looks of things. So I wouldn't be too concerned about completing those. Generally speaking, if you're a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes player, you're going to be familiar with this kind of reward system. If you're not, these first 5 difficulties or 5 tiers of rewards for your personal points are generally super easy to earn with minimal engagement in these events throughout the week. So you're going to get guaranteed blue and purple ISO. I would almost promise everybody that that's a fact in those first handful of personal point nodes. So the goal of this is to help push you to get into Dark Dimension 8 and to finish APOC and get your characters through those higher Dark Dimensions as you grow from level 75 up. If you've been a fan of our channel for a while, we know that all the current legendary characters in the game with the exception of the last few Dark Dimension ones where the gear requirement gets in your way, can be unlocked at level 75. So this kind of puts you in a great place to understand, like, this is the beginning and it's going to grow from there. Okay. Now, moving on ahead, next topic here, the ways you earn these victory points. You have combat missions and you have spec ops missions. Now, we're going to break these down in more detail here in a second, but the number one thing you need to know, combat missions are active. You will be sitting down in front of your phone 5 to 10 minutes a mission and playing them to win. Now, from what we've heard of the beta testing, a lot of these in the earlier nodes are pretty autoable as long as you have the characters at the recommended level or the characters called out for bonuses in those nodes. You can set it on auto for most of us and walk away if you're not a brand new player. But they did beta test it at level 75, gear tier 14, and all the envoys were able to get through it. It was just very boring. So, you're an endgame player, you're used to a certain level of time and challenge, and it's always a bummer when you are forced to play something at a lower difficulty first. It can be very boring. But I feel like for new players, that'll probably be a good goal to strive for, right? You get to that point, you're like, okay, sweet. You're going to have fun playing it a few times. And then once you kind of have your team that you know is going to 100% it, then you hit auto and you start looking for the next challenge as you build your roster. For us veterans, it's going to be a lot of auto at first. And that's okay, I think. A lot of people didn't want to add a lot of play time to their day, a lot of screen time, because, we're staring at these screens all day, editing content, playing these games, answering your messages on Discord and things like that. So, do not take that as no one wants to play the game. It's very much there's only 24 hours in a day and we all have lives. So it's I think it'll be an okay feature for the most part, because it's going to allow those of us who have other stuff to do to have the same impact with the game and a little less screen time if we desire. But newer players who Scopely is really looking to engage, whether it's free to play or pay to win or whatever, they need those bodies in the door. And I think this is a good way for them to engage with those newer players, to give them a game mode they're familiar with. However, something that they can experiment with, use different teams, and have a good time. That said, it is a pretty straight carbon copy of territory battles from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, including like the bonus missions and the things we're going to talk about later that they're doing at their new Galactic Challenge event. Rise of the Empire in their territory battle event. So I shouldn't say carbon copy. It is very similar in the way that it functions and the way that it tries to monetize the event. So if you are familiar with that, that's kind of what we're looking at. I think it's a little less predatory if you're an endgame alliance. I think a lot of endgame alliances will not have a problem filling out the different missions here. A lot of newer players, though, are going to have a tough time, especially in their first few months. Now, that being said, let's move in to actually breaking down these missions, how they work, how you score points. So, combat missions, okay? Let's move over here to the combat mission tab in our web browser. These combat missions have a total number of victory points you can earn in each mission. They're going to be different from zone to zone. So this is zone 1, what you have available. And then there's this Spec Ops node at the end for victory points. So you can add all this up. If all of your alliance completes these events, earns these max points, that's what you can expect to use to move on to the next zone. And you could tell there's about 30,000 just in these combat missions. And then there's Spec Ops. Now, we'll get to these in a second, but it's just important to note that between all of these missions and the Spec Ops, you should have more than enough points to get through each zone to the next zone. Now, moving forward, we also are adding Herald missions to the game. That's not available in these screenshots on MSF. But again, envoys, beta testers, players' movement, quality testers that they've been releasing content to so that they can test it for the general audience, have told us that they've adjusted some of these nodes so they have a mini boss. And the mini boss in the beta was not difficult, but it was just a fun little sub challenge boss to do. There was a few different skins and designs, and hopefully those are just inserts so that we can have real mini bosses. And these are just kind of fun ways to test what works and what doesn't. And then finally, the final node, if you clear everything each week, is going to allow you to unlock Knull. which one is that? That slide is here. So it's if you complete every zone, the final day or once you clear all those points, I don't know yet. That's I'm not an envoy, not a beta tester, not in the player's voice movement. I have no special knowledge here outside of what I see from envoys and data miners. You'll get a whole 24-hour period to fight Knull. Now, I don't know if that starts as soon as you unlock the point requirement. I don't know if that starts on your reset timer, but it's an alliance-wide boss battle. We're going to break Knull down into a separate video, probably a little closer to knowing how the reward structure works. The reason being, his mechanics are all over the place, but you're not going to clear him as a single player. It's going to be a concerted team effort every time to knock his health bar down to 0. And once his health bar is at 0, he will respawn. The health counter is going to go up. And the challenge then becomes how many times can your alliance kill Knull in that 24-hour period with the teams and resources at your disposal. So I'm really excited for that. I think that's going to be the coolest thing, is working through all these zones and working together with your team to smash Knull. Now, keeping in mind that Knull, not everyone's going to get to Knull right away or on their first try, and the only way that we know of right now to guarantee yourselves Knull shards is to clear the whole thing on difficulty 5. So that's all I can say for now, but they are supposed to have it to where we can get a steady flow of Knull shards if you're able to clear difficulty 5. So thinking of that, we already know how we earn combat points for the missions. Victory points for the missions. Let's talk about how we earn combat points and victory points from Spec Ops. So moving ourselves over here to the Spec Ops screen. What you need to know about Spec Ops. These nodes, there's 30 depositable characters in each. From what's been data mined by Boilon and Quickdraw, you're going to need 6 different characters. Okay, so 6 times 5 is 30. So you need 5 of each of those 6 different characters to go in each of these nodes. And as you go through these Spec Ops, they will increase in requirements. And we're going to go over those here in just a second. But the big takeaway for each Spec Ops you clear, you're going to get these victory points from this little meter on the left. And if you clear all 8, that should be a crap ton of victory points by itself. So seems very doable at first to get most of the victory points here between the combat missions and the Spec Ops missions to get to the next tier. Now, the problem that a lot of groups are going to have, if all 24 of your members are not actively engaged in the planning of your Spec Ops, that could ruin a whole week of BattleWorld. Because even if you don't clear Zone 1 the first day and you clear it the second day, well, it's only so many days long, and if you don't clear everything by the end of it, you're not going to get to play Knull. So making sure that you have a plan for your Spec Ops and your deployment for that is going to be super duper important. And we're going to talk about those requirements here real quick. Some of them are pretty rough, but I do feel like this is going to be a game mode where the newer players actually get to engage a bit more in the combat, and the more veteran players, their challenge is going to be trying to get through some of these combat missions without their best teams. And let's explain why. So just a brief review of the numbers. There's 8 missions needing 30 tunes each for a total of 8 missions needing 30 tunes each for 240 total units over all 8 Spec Ops. Each Alliance member can donate 10 tunes maximum across all ops, so that's 240. So we're going to have a max 24 Alliance members. Now, I'm going to link in the description below a link to Boilon's breakdown of the Spec Ops missions. Now, I'm going to tell you guys all 2 things. One, I very much believe the data mines as to the required star levels that we're going to go over here and things like that, gear levels for each node, or for each Spec Op rather. However, Boilon's video does data mine and show potential characters for each Spec Ops on each day. Now, my only concern, I don't want to put that information out there because I didn't data mine it. That's not mine. So I'm going to let that go to Boilon or go visit the Quickdraw data mine channel on Discord and, check that stuff out there. but I don't feel comfortable telling anyone to invest in some of these characters because they're older. And the problem you might have is, since this is a data mine, they could change things before the official release of the game. They could change what characters, what levels, gears, things like that. However, I feel like for each Spec Ops, the ascending challenge and requirements makes perfect sense. And there's even been some back and forth in other channels, such as, other envoys. I don't want to name names. I haven't talked to them personally before making this video. But, there's talk that these requirements for these garrisons, these Spec Ops, whatever you want to call them, are going to change either weekly or seasonally. So I don't want to tell people to upgrade specific characters because they might not be the characters you need when the event launches, whenever that's going to be. But I do feel comfortable sharing with all of you good examples of the scaling of difficulty as far as star level, red star, diamonds, gear, and how to strategize for that with your alliance while you're figuring out BattleWorld. So with that in mind, I'm going to run through these ops requirements here for you real quick. Let's look at Ops 1, 3 yellow. Okay, so nothing crazy there. Ops 2, 5 yellow. All right. Ops 3, 7 yellow. Okay. Ops 4, 7 yellow, gear 15. Not bad. Then we were at Ops 5, which is 7 yellow, gear 17. Okay, it's getting a little higher now. It's level 90 required, right? Spec Ops 6 is going to be 7 yellow, 6 red, which, let's be honest, friends, if you've been playing the game for more than 6 to 8 months, red stars probably aren't too big of an issue for you. But you need 7 yellow, 6 red, gear 17 for this one. And then finally, sorry, we got 2 more. 7 yellow, 6 red, gear 19 for Spec Ops 7. 7 yellow, 1 diamond, gear 19 for Spec Ops 8. So with these things in mind, I want you all to keep a few things in mind when you're strategizing amongst your alliance mates for BattleWorld. First and foremost, that final node is going to be the most difficult to complete. So if you have alliance members that can fill all those slots with their 1 diamond, gear 19, whatever it requires, I would recommend that be your strategy. That's going to end up seeing you a bigger payout down the road than trying to use some of those characters for combat missions, at least as of the making of this video. What envoys and Player's Voice and other reviewers have told us about the event so far is that these requirements are not requirements per se, they are bonuses, and they make life easier. But we should be able to fight these in a very general sense. These should not be hard to get these victory points with how broad these categories are. Now, this elite mission, Astral or Pegasus, we do know that they're going to probably force us into using Astral for the bonuses if we want the max amount of points. Pegasus is a raid team from around actually this time last year when they started doing the incursion raids. It's just not the best anymore. Kestrel's awesome. Rescue Reviving is awesome. Iron Man Infinity War has ability blocks and synergy with Kestrel. You could throw with Nick Fury. They have decent members, but they're just not cream of the crop anymore. And the fact that they're asking you to bring in Astral or Pegasus probably means that Astral is going to be the correct choice. That in mind, this does not seem impossible. These all seem pretty achievable. But if you are an endgame alliance, your number one priority should be Spec Ops 7 and 8. Get those done. Let your lower members, newer members, non-spenders fill in 1 through 6. And if you have the wide enough roster, you should be filling 7 and 8. And then you should be going back to BattleWorld and clearing these combat missions with the lower level characters in that category, right? This way you can complete both the Spec Ops and your victory points. Now, again, I have not played this, but in all the early access iterations that all the envoys have spoken on, most of these missions are super duper easy if you have an endgame roster. Now, that in mind, if you are a newer to mid-game alliance and you're trying to fill these Spec Op missions, my sincerest recommendation is, if you're an alliance leader or captain, you look at the highest Spec Op difficulty that everybody in your alliance can clear. So if everybody can hit Diff 5, your primary goal then should be, hey, everybody can do 1 through 5. So if you can, fill those first, because that's 5 guaranteed tiers of points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that's a whole bunch of points. So that's 76, 80, 78. It's about 12,000 points off the top of my head, which is a sixth of the example to progress to the next area here. So, if everybody can fill those, set that as your goal and work your way from there. Make sure that every time you play this event, you're setting yourself up so that you can complete as much of this as possible with as minimal instruction to your alliance as possible, especially for free-to-play newer alliances where the communication might not be the best. Your goal should be to make this as simple as humanly possible for everybody in your alliance. And chances are the players who can start filling up these higher Spec Ops missions are going to be more engaged, more communicative, and there'll be people that will reach out to you if they don't see or hear something from you. Now, this is a high engagement event. If you do not have a good alliance communication, either in-game or through Discord or through any other service like that, this is going to be very, very tough. This is not going to be like War for a lot of newer and mid-game alliances where you can just kind of click to highlight the rooms you want people to swing at and things will get done. This so far very much looks like how it is in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, where you can give vague instructions, maybe highlight certain things, but it's going to be largely up to your alliance to know the plan. So again, my strongest recommendations for these, if you're an mid to end game alliance with high TCP, wider rosters, spenders, they should be filling 7 and 8 first, work your way down, because everyone's going to have a 3 yellow of whatever at some point, right? If they want Sentinel, well, hopefully by the time that this goes live, you'll have a 3 yellow Sentinel, right? So I would not worry on the earlier nodes. Those should be fairly easy for mid to end game alliances. I would worry about having the numbers to fill up 7 and 8. And if you can do that, then everything else will more than likely take care of itself, as long as you have engagement and a good plan with your alliance. If you're an earlier game alliance, you want to look through the rosters of your alliance mates, see what the top Spec Ops you can complete is, and start filling that one, and just say, hey, starting with Spec Op 5, fill that up and work your way down. And I do seriously believe that that'll be the most consistent way to get lower engaged alliances to do this successfully. That is more than likely one of the tacks I might try to take with my alliance, but I'm really hoping that everyone really gets into this, because I think it's very simple. It's not going to be as time consuming as people think, and I'm really excited for this boss battle when it comes to Knull. Moving on, we just have a few topics left to cover. I want to kind of cover the breakdowns of these screen grabs, and I also want to cover how alliance captains and leaders can take steps to help plan now for BattleWorld by viewing other players' alliances via MarvelStrikeForce.com. So we're just going to kind of go through these. These are all images I pulled from the Marvel Strike Force webpage. Big shout out to Scopely and Marvel Strike Force. First one, this is kind of like your landing page, where I imagine if you're the alliance leader, you can set the difficulty of the event. Again, it's going to show you your personal victory points for this siege. These are personal rewards that are going to count separately from your alliance rewards. This is going to be your participation leaderboard, and we do have a BattleWorld store, and it looks like we're going to have some purple ISO in there, hopefully ions. I don't need crystals, I need ions. But that's why this event's going to be so important, is you're going to get not only Knull shards throughout at the higher difficulties, we're also going to get purple ISO, and presumably some crimson gear once they loosen the grip on that. This next one is kind of a brief look at what our world map looks like. These are all the different stages that take us to our boss battle at the end of it with Knull. And if you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of events, and if you clear them all and hit the points, you're going to get to fight Knull. Moving on from here, we've got the third one. Again, this is Zone 1's combat missions, right? That's what these 5 are. This is where you're going to fight your Herald, which is those fun sub-bosses we were talking about in the combat mission portion. And then finally, you have your victory points from your Spec Ops. Now, this, I imagine, is not 10 victory points. You're going to get a lot more from that. But again, this is all beta, alpha footage. And again, when we go to this last screen, which is the prizes and rewards for Spec Ops, you can see you're going to get a lot more than that. This is your personal victory points, I believe, for each character donated. and then these will be all of your tiers for each time you fill a Spec Ops mission. And again, I'm going to leave the Spec Ops Datamine requirement breakdown in the comments below. And I will also leave a link to Boilon's video in the comments below in case you want to look at those individual characters that he was able to data mine from each Spec Op. My only caution would be that there has been communication out there in different videos that these can change. And I would warn anybody thinking of investing highly in those data mine characters to stop and say, hey, we don't know this yet. If you already have them at that level, maybe bookmark them, throw them in a separate tab. This way, when it gets to that point, we can see how far off we were. But of course, you know, I would not recommend a newer player going out and spending tons of money trying to bring up all these tunes when we don't even know which ones we're going to need. So hold on to those wallets, friends. Let's get some official clarification, and then we'll put out like an official release video where we can talk about how that's going to work when we have more communication. But for now, start keeping in mind those requirements and when looking at your alliance roster, and use that to kind of help you dictate kind of who can be where. Communicate these things early so that when the event does drop, which will probably be out of left field, knowing Scopely, you know, we'll have a couple days heads up because they want that FOMO. Then we will know, and we'll be able to say, okay, here's our plan. Ro goes here, Hef goes here, Big Bro goes there, and we're going to make it look real simple, right? We've got our rewards. Now, again, these are just placeholders. I believe that we will probably get more than one crystal to tier 3 worth of ions, you know, throughout the event. These are your first time completions. And again, these victory points are low. It's going to be much higher than that, but it's nice to kind of know what to expect, right? We're going to have some BattleWorld currency to spend in their store. We're going to get purple ions, purple crystal orb fragments, and T4s. I imagine as they add more difficulties, they eventually will add Crimson Gear or another style of BattleWorld, which is the plus side of this. And I'm going to step back for just one more second and talk about Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. The nicest thing that they did with their Rise of the Empire territory battle, which again is just this on steroids, is that they give you lots of variety in their world map. Like one way you can go to Bespin and Naboo and all these other places. The other place takes you to Coruscant. It lets you jump all over the map by completing points to push for certain objectives. And I'm kind of hoping that's what they do for BattleWorld. Like this will be our main path to Knull. And then in 6 months, maybe we'll unlock a path. Let me pull up the image again. Maybe we'll unlock a path to the north of Knull here, and that'll take us to Onslaught. And then maybe 6 months later, we'll unlock a path down here, and that'll take us to name a cool Marvel character, right? So there's lots of room for this to grow. There's lots of room for them to be creative, and there's lots of ways for them to monetize it, which kind of sucks for us, but it's great for them because it means the lights stay on. I feel like the more that they don't necessarily imitate, but draw inspiration from Rise of the Empire, from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I know they have devs working with them now that worked on that game mode. In fact, one is in charge of this one. So I expect to see some changes before its final release. I did hear just today, October 25th, that they are running a third test with the envoys, courtesy of the Valley Fly and Upthaw weekly news update. So we know there's more changes to come. And that's one of those big reasons I harp on. Don't spend based on the data mines. Prepare, right? Have those characters earmarked. Make sure that you need 7 yellow stars for them, that you're farming those with your energy throughout the week. But I would caution, don't overinvest in any of that stuff until we know for sure, because it seems like every time they change this, everyone gets a little more happy. The envoys get happy. The playtesters get a little more happy with each new iteration. So I would just say be patient, but plan ahead. Right, plan accordingly. So we talked about the difficulty rewards. Knull is huge. Again, we're going to do our own video on Knull, a whole separate thing, but you can tell by beating him, you're going to get a crap ton of victory points. There is supposed to be leaderboards and different milestones associated with BattleWorld each week. Again, we don't have any firm confirmation on that stuff and what it's going to be, but again, in their official communications to us, they have mentioned purple ISO crystals and ions along with T4s and other gold and other standard rewards, right? So I feel like that's a safe assumption, is that we're going to see those things and a bunch of BattleWorld currency for the more victory points and alliance points we get, hit those higher milestones. And then lastly, just a fun little blurb here. It's just a silly team they threw up here so we can see Knull. Knull looks pretty good in this alpha footage. I'm not mad about it. Looking like a boss. Looking like a complete unit over here. And yeah, that's pretty much all we have. We're gonna do a separate video on Knull. Knull, not only as a lore and symbiote component, has a huge interest to me, because I had never gotten to the point in the symbiote stuff. I've heard of Knull. Knull is a myth to me. So I'm very excited to get to dive deep and learn all about that stuff. But also, it just looks sweet. His abilities look sweet. The fact that we're going to get to unlock him and play with him is awesome. I really like the concept of what they're striving for here. Again, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, this is very similar to unlocking characters like Riva or Coyote Mundi or Wat Tambor, which Wat Tambor is one of the most crucial support characters in that game. When it comes to like end game and more plug and play meta stuff. And that's what Knull's supposed to be at the start, is a little bit more of a plug and play once we unlock him. And we don't have our version of his kit yet, but we're going to go over what his kit is again in that other video, and it looks broken. So if we even get a 50% of that, it's going to be an awesome, awesome time. But all right, friends, that is all we've got for the BattleWorld Breakdown. Now, again, I did this for my alliance, but everybody is welcome to peep this video. Oh, shoot. Hang on, friends. I almost forgot a very important step for alliance captains and their friends. So if we go into the game here, anybody who is an alliance captain or has any kind of admin privileges, make sure you go, if you're a member, and make sure your roster is set to share with your alliance only, or anyone if you want people to be able to look you up. I'll let anyone look at mine. I'm not scared. I have to refresh the page, I bet here. But point stands, you have to make sure that that is turned on so that your alliance captains and your alliance leaders know what to look for. Because if that's not turned on and I go to look at somebody in my alliance's roster, I'm going to get a very not accurate version of their roster. And that's going to make it very hard for me to be able to find out, okay, where does this player sit in regards to what I have to do to help make sure we clear those Spec Ops missions, right? Or tell people, hey, you fill the Spec Ops, you do this mission, right? And then also, you'll also want to make sure when you hit this roster that you sync it up every time. Now, I synced mine before I filmed this video, which is a bit unfortunate. Let me just see if there's anything. No, I already synced my roster. Sorry, guys. But there's a little button here actually right next to this. If you haven't updated it in a while, that will allow you to sync it with this. So it's sync your roster and then make sure you're either sharing with anyone or your alliance. This way your alliance captains and leaders can look you up and help plan for BattleWorld. Now we're done with the video, friends. Again, I made this for my alliance, the Black Brotherhood. We're part of the Black Cluster. We have our own Discord server. It's very fun. If you're looking for a good cluster, I don't know how much space we have, but I know my alliance has a spot as of the recording of this video. And if you're a quality active player, you don't have to spend, but we're almost always looking for one. This 24th slot's been a bit of a bear. But with these things in mind, my friends, things to keep at the back of your mind. If you need to reference the Spec Ops requirements, I'm going to have them, the Datamine star levels and things, gear levels, in the comments, the descriptions, and things like that below. I will also have the link to Boilon's full Datamine video on each of those Spec Ops nodes, what the star requirements and characters are, because A, that's where I got my numbers for the node requirements, but also because I believe that a lot of those characters are worth looking at. I don't know if the older ones are worth building based on the data mine, but I do know that Boilon puts in a lot of hard work and he risks a lot trying to do that content, and he risks a reputation and things. And, we poke fun of him a little bit here on the channel, but he's always been a good dude. He provides good information. He's got his sources. So, make sure you go over there. If you want more data mine BattleWorld stuff, I just would be careful about upgrading characters or spending money, especially on those characters, until we have an official announcement on what's going to be the effect from Scopely, right? If it's going to be a rotation, then maybe don't invest in those at all. Just know they're part of the first rotation. If, it's going to be a static thing, that could change a bit. But that's something to kind of decide once it launches and we see the final product. Now we're done. This has been a bit of a long video, friends, but if you found this video useful, please make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel. It's free for you, really helps me out a lot. You can also find us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/rowofgilly, just like it is here on YouTube. And as always, friends, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Long days, pleasant nights, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in the next one.